Welcome to Conversate, our podcast where we engage in conversation. And on this week's episode, I, Aaron, and Kevin are having a conversation about following after Jesus, what it looks like and where he leads us. We all follow things in this world, other voices, our favorite athletes, politicians, you name it. And we're just asking in this conversation, do we follow Jesus in the same way, with the same kind of conviction? Well, we're going to take a look at that, ask some real questions, and give some practical advice on what it looks like to follow Jesus. As always, we hope you enjoy this conversation. Kevin!
Wait. Whoa. That was crazy.
That was crazy. Hey, my wife and I did this thing recently where you close your eyes with the other person and you see if you can clap at the same time.
Should we do it?
You don't say anything. Yeah. So we're just going to close our eyes. We're gonna do it. Just close your eyes, and then when you feel like clapping, you just clap.
Are we putting our mics down?
We could probably
We'll
clap in front of the mic.
Okay.
So put your mic in your lap.
Okay. Clap in front of me.
All right, everybody just pay attention. Close your eyes. That's closer than my wife and I did.
I was like hanging out and I was like, oh no, it's going to be faster than this. We can't hang out forever.
Yeah. Two of my kids did it, and their first try was boom.
They got it
right on.
That's impressive.
I know. Yeah, we were hanging out with my brother and his wife over Christmas, and they told us about that. And then Abby and I tried it. We were way off. And then my brother and his wife were like, because they had only heard about it. They hadn't tried it, or we saw it on a video. That's what it was that we were watching. So then my brother and his wife tried it, and they got it right away. And I was like, we must not really love each other.
Not reading into this at all. I feel like in that, like I really wanted to wait like 30 seconds to clap.
Yeah.
So I feel like it would never work out for me and whoever did it with me.
Oh.
Because I just want to wait a long time. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, we were close to being in sync.
It was. Yeah, that's not bad.
Ba, ba, ba. That's in sync, right?
I think so.
Well, yeah, we did that for the
I know
for the
kickoff
ministry in sync.
Yeah.
Good times. Good times. Well, it's another day.
It is.
Another day, another dollar.
The snow was falling gently from the sky today, which was nice.
Yeah.
It hasn't fallen enough.
Yeah. You know, want to hear something funny? You know how sometimes you just make up words, things like conversate, you know, and then it becomes something. And that's how language is developed. People just make stuff up. Well, yesterday I was at a meeting at Camp Luther. I'm on the board of directors for Camp Luther, and the board was talking about something, and it was something that the board had already talked about, and then it would like came back around or something, and so I said, you guys, I don't think we need to rehash this horse. Everybody looked at me. I was like, yeah, I don't think that's a saying. I was like, rehash the horse, you know, and they said that must be a Youper thing. I was like, must be rehash the horse. And I thought about it in the moment. I'm like, I don't know why there's a horse. And then I told Abby about it, and she's like, well, I think you meant like you don't have to beat the dead horse.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't have to rehash this.
Mixed metaphors.
Yeah. So rehash the horse. If you ever need to use it.
Oh, well, we can make it a thing. It could catch on. It's kind of a, it's a little bit of a dark idea, the horse hash.
The horse hash. I think I got to turn your microphone up a little bit.
Oh, do it. Give me some. Oh, that's pretty spicy. If I laugh, it'll hurt the ears of our ears.
So?
I don't know. It depends how loud I laugh.
I think it's similar to mine now.
I hurt Molly's ears every time I laugh. That's not true. Every time I sneeze, though.
My dad shakes the house when he sneezes.
My dad threw out his back sneezing.
Really?
Yeah.
I threw out a rib sneezing.
Really?
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
I got up my sneeze game.
My dad always sneezes in threes, too. He says it's one for the Father, one for the Son, and one for the Spirit.
My Spanish teacher would say, like, Jesus, and then he would go into, like, Mary and then Joseph if you did that in his class. My older brother will sneeze, like, 7 times in a row.
Really?
It's crazy.
That is crazy. This is another wacky start to this podcast, Kevin.
It is, but I'm not in as wacky of a. Last week, I was in a mood. Today I'm just tired.
Yeah.
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 But the coffee's working.
That's good. You need some more? Oh, I was going to pour some of my coffee into your coffee.
No, I just want another clink.
Boy. Yeah, it's kind of dreary. And normally we record this podcast earlier in the day, but it's getting late.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost bedtime.
It's wear down mode. Yeah. That's about right.
We should spice it up. No, that didn't do it. The people are cheering you on, Kevin. You can do it.
Here we go. Oh, it's getting louder. I feel like I'm in the rainforest.
Okay.
Well, let's
get going.
Let's get going. Yeah.
So, what's the algorithm of your life?
Ooh. Well, okay, so I'm going to break that concept down. Algorithm of my life, which is there are different voices feeding into your life, telling you what is going to make you matter or fit in or be, this is like your identity. That's kind of how I was hearing algorithm of your life. Right?
Yeah.
Because you got these different, like in a very tangible way, you have like actual advertisers advertising things to you based on what you search and such. But that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to fit some sort of felt need that you have. Mm-hmm. For me, a lot of times that algorithm of my life has been, I would say like performance based. So like in particular, it's like embarrassing, but like I feel valuable as a person when I do very well at a video game, which is a very, like what kind of consequence does that have in anyone's existence? Not much. But for whatever reason, it may have been because I played so many when I was a kid, but like I know about myself if I'm feeling low in some way that playing a video game and doing well at it, because if I do bad at it, that just makes things worse. But if I do well at it, I'll start to feel like, I'm not so bad after all.
Huh. Okay.
So that's a piece. The algorithm's very complex.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
That's an example of, by the way, listeners, that's an example of an algorithm of a life that is not going to lead you to life.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's part of it.
Yeah.
I think you were getting at.
Yeah. So I had this idea, well, so talking about following after Jesus and in doing that, when you follow Jesus and I follow Jesus, when you do it fully and I do it fully, we're part of this community, this unity of following Jesus. And a similar thing happens, I think, in these algorithms of life. I mean, I think all of us desire to be known. All of us desire to be part of something, so the savviness of the technology algorithms reach out to that felt need, right? That, you've got this interest. Here are other people of this similar interest. Let's bring you together, and then we'll show you similar ads, will feed you similar voices and videos to pique your curiosity about this thing more and make you want to be more and more part of this community. And then here's a product or a service to give you even more of it and make it more part of your life instead of just being a viewer of this. Now you can be a participant, and now you're in it, and now you actually really love it, and you feel the sense of belonging and purpose and value, and then you start telling other people about this thing, and I mean, I've done it.
Yeah.
I've done it. And I mean, I'm a Manflow yoga evangelist.
I have been I've been proselytized by you on that one.
No, I mean, but it's for real. There's this workout series of videos called Manflow Yoga, and it's really good stuff. I told a lot of people about it. I liked it so much that I bought the guy's products, and they're good. The quality, I like it. I want to be part of that community, and I am, and I've told lots of people that they would benefit from it. And so I mean, that's just one example. This, like, if you think about all the voices and all those things that are calling for your attention and calling for your financial investment and calling for your, I mean, just the marketing world, the commercialization of everything. I mean, and it's all doing that. We've talked on this podcast again, like many times, about which voices are are vying for your attention. You
right.
know? I think we're big into formation,
right?
Like, and what are you being formed into, and how are you being formed into the likeness of Christ?
Yeah.
So that's why it keeps coming up,
right?
So, anyways, my thinking was in reading the scriptures in 1 Corinthians, the church was having these debates over, you know, I follow Paul, I follow Apollos, I follow Cephas, and they had those followings, and they put themselves in these groups, and they didn't like that other group, and they thought that other group was lesser, or didn't have the truth, the real truth, or whatever, and they weren't really, you know, whatever. I don't know what they said, but
right, we don't get the juicies.
It was of that sort. You can fill in the blanks, and so Paul's point to them is, come on, none of us. We've all been faithful teachers of Jesus. We came, like, what did Paul die for you? No, Jesus did. Were you baptized into the name of Paul? No, you're baptized in the name of Jesus. Cut it out.
It'd be kind of an interesting confirmation verse, or like, I'm glad I didn't baptize more of you.
Yeah,
it's kind of a weird line, you know. But Paul's really getting after it. Like, this is totally anti what we're here for. Yeah.
Well, I was talking to somebody after church yesterday who used to belong to a different church in a different city. And this person was kind of in like volunteer leadership in the congregation, and the pastor had been there decades, I don't know, 20, 30 years, something like that. And then the pastor left. And this person said like half the congregation left because that pastor left. This person was left like in a leadership role, and it said that they used this verse in like calling the congregation to account, like,
sure,
we're
not following this individual. Yeah,
we're following Jesus. What are we doing here? You know. So, you know. Anyways,
so you kind of took us to like you took this point that Paul is making to the Corinthian congregation, and you kind of applied it to us on a more individual basis, right? Not so much saying like, you know, hey, what are our cliques here at Saints Peter and Paul? Because we don't have any, so you didn't have to worry about that.
Sorry.
No, but you took that kind of idea, that notion, and then applied it on a more just like a more at home or more personal, I would say, basis of like, what camps am I following? You know, not particularly like, oh, this or that Christian leader within the church, like Cephas or, you know, Apollos, whatever, but just at a very
Kevin or Aaron.
Yeah, at a very base level, what who is vying for my attention? Who am I giving it to? Because in that sense, I'm following those people. Like, I'm putting myself in that camp. And is Jesus, like, is he a part of even my, you know, what is he a part of my whole sphere of camps? And what slice of the pie maybe is he getting? Like, how does he relate or connect to all these other groups? Because and you acknowledge it in your sermon too. Like, what you're not saying is you can't be a part of any groups. Give up Manflow Yoga, you know, and only be in church groups. That's the only thing that's allowed. But is Jesus predominant? You know, like even in these other groups, like, or do these other groups take more precedent in our identity, or especially when you start to think of like the values, you know, kind of like the kingdom, the upside down kingdom, kind of inevitably in lots of other groups, they're going to come into confrontation, right? Like, you can be a part of other groups, but like, I mean, it's like you said, the rhetoric of some groups can start to be like, you're lesser because you think this way or that way. Like, therefore, you're not as valid. Our group's the best. Your group isn't as good.
Well, this is the thing that's I think unique about following Jesus, is that that's different than these other camps in the world or whatever, that in order to wholly and fully follow Jesus, we have to willingly and sacrificially die to self.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that, there's room at the table for people of all kinds, of backgrounds, of, I don't know, worldly experiences.
Yeah. Spiritual experience.
Yeah. Of political beliefs.
Yeah.
all these different stripes.
Uh-huh.
If we willingly put those things on the back and put Jesus on the front, then the Christian community is different than any other community in the world, because all these other communities are very very isolated. Like you have to like just it becomes what you were saying, like if you're part of this camp, then that one must be wrong. That one's bad. That one's
right. These are our enemies.
Yeah.
You might say.
Yeah. Instead of there's room at this table, like.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was making a strong point in my sermon. It's challenging us to follow Jesus. Like I think. And I'm not like picking on anybody at Saints Peter and Paul in particular or anybody, but just like kind of calling that to account. Like, am I really being obedient to the call of following after Christ? Or am I just holding him as kind of a nice idea in my life? One of many options that I'll call upon when I need access to what the goods he has to offer. Or am I sold out wholly and fully on following Jesus?
Yeah.
And I think it's fair for us to evaluate that, and not in a, like a guilt-inducing way of like, oh, I follow Jesus better than you follow Jesus. It's not that. It's just like, all I'm saying is we follow stuff.
Yeah.
We follow stuff in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We commit our intellectual curiosity, our emotional curiosity, our financial investment, this relational capital into all these things, into this man flow yoga. Am I even coming close? Am I following of Jesus?
Right.
Am I you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I appreciated that kind of like, you had those three pieces, which was I think financial investment, like relational investment,
intellectual. I said,
but because you're curious, and but those things were helpful because it's asking that question of like, how invested am I in this? And like the point I hear you bringing out about like your following of Jesus is like, it's not a guilt-inducing thing. It's just it's kind of more of a matter of fact. Like, do I believe Jesus is who he says he is? And is it going to produce in my life the things that Jesus has promised to produce, right? If I believe that Jesus is who he says he is, and that I'm going to be a recipient of the things he's come to bring, that has like way more significance than if I do good at this video game, you know, or if I do yoga in the mornings. Like my body will feel better if I do yoga, but that's pretty insignificant in comparison to what Jesus is offering. Yeah. Now, if Jesus isn't who he says he is, then it doesn't matter at all to follow him. There's no point in following him.
Right.
You're wasting your time by following him. Yeah. But there's no middle room. There's no room in following Jesus to be kind of like halfway in. It just doesn't make sense.
I know.
Because what he's giving blows out of the water anything else you could ever hope for in your life, in your existence. I mean, absolutely blows it out of the water.
Well, and that's why I drew those comparisons between like the rich young ruler who wanted to follow Jesus. Jesus said, well, sell all you have and give it to the poor, and then come and follow me. And he walked away sad because he was really wealthy.
Right.
And Jesus went on to say, like, it's easier for a camel to, go through the eye of a needle than for the rich to inherit the kingdom of heaven. And it's like, those are those scriptures where you read it and you're like, but I know some like really good like Christian people that are really wealthy. Like, does that mean what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Do they really have to like Can they not have earthly riches and be followers of Jesus? And that's not the case. If you read it in context, that rich young ruler, before ever getting there, had also already claimed to Jesus to have perfectly kept all 10 commandments.
Right.
Also,
He had a very
so
he did not have a very honest view of himself.
yeah. So he
And you have plenty of rich people or wealthy people, throughout the history of Christianity who were, something like Joseph of Arimathea, like he was a rich man, or Nicodemus, I imagine, was pretty well off.
right. So Jesus is just making a point to that man. It was like the very practical straw when he was claiming like to be perfect according to the 10 commandments. That's where Jesus is like, okay, obviously this guy isn't being real with himself, isn't really thinking this through. So he lays that practical thing in front of him. It's like,
Right.
okay, well,
If
if you're perfect,
Right,
then go ahead and do
this.
this. And that's when he's like, oh,
Right. I mean, it revealed for him something that where he had put his, you might say, I mean, it's kind of an odd example but like his financial investment, his relational investment, his intellectual investment, right? Like his wealth was the thing that he held very closely to himself.
yeah,
Right. That was
he wasn't in, and those things would prevent him from following Jesus.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
They got in the way. He cared more
you
about
can't
it.
serve both God and money,
Right. And that goes for, any other, because like it's not necessarily, money might not be your God. Now that is many people's God,
Yeah.
Which I think is maybe what Jesus is getting after when he says like how hard it is, right, for those who are wealthy, just because it's like, I don't know, it's just kind of inborn in human nature that we like money and think money will solve our problems. And
Yeah. Well, we like having life in comfortable and in good order, and
the way we want it.
yeah.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with what we depend on as well. I want to depend on myself. If I have money, I'm in control. I can depend on myself. I'm good, you know. So I'm not really necessarily relying upon God, right? But you can have, you can't serve the God of grudges and serve God as either.
Right.
Right? Like I can that maybe my God is my reputation or something. And so when someone else has hurt me, I want to destroy their reputation so that mine can look better than theirs. And so I go about doing that. Well, I'm not following Jesus at that point. Like I'm going exactly counter to what Jesus came to do and say, right? So yeah, so these kind of like there's these different voices or gods or things that are vying for our investment, but also like vying for our hearts, really, when it comes down to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like the thing that's like, this is what makes you important or worthy or useful. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, where your treasure is, there your heart is.
Yeah.
Or where your heart is, there your treasure is. Did I say it backwards?
Oh, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
We just need to rehash the horse.
Count me in. Throw on a side of eggs.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. So, I was thinking about this, and I was trying to paint the picture, but I think it would be fair for people to ask the question, okay, well, I want to follow Jesus, but what does that mean, like practically speaking, in 21st century America?
Right.
This is 21st century. We're not in the 22nd century.
Not
Right?
yet. Coming up though.
In a couple, like 100 years.
Yeah, in like 80.
Yeah. All right. We'll be there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not gonna make it.
No?
No way, dude. I'd be 110.
The average life expectancy is going up.
That's true. Maybe I'll live forever.
Yeah, you could have 400 kids.
I'll be booted up on the internet or something.
Okay.
But go on. Yeah. So how do we practically follow Jesus?
How do we practically follow Jesus in the modern 21st century America? Well, let's just start with those three things.
Yeah.
That are laid out. The
Intellectual
investment. So what does it mean to kind of be intellectually invested in following after Jesus? I mean, and I don't want it to just be a brain thing. It is also a heart thing, and so it's an emotional investment. It's this like
it's holistic.
Yeah, I'm curious about learning more about Jesus and His Word.
Yeah.
So what do we do? We read it.
Yeah, right.
Read his word, discuss it with other people.
Mm-hmm.
This is why we're so passionate about discipleship here, to have other people speaking truth into your life and giving you the opportunity to lead other people into that truth. And it's just this deeper longing for figuring out the ways that the word of God actually does have something to say about present day life, and searching the scriptures to find that. I think that's that curiosity. So
Yeah.
are we doing that on a daily basis? I mean, and just, it's not, like, I like to do like time comparisons, but it's not like, it's not like one or the other. So I mean, I want to say, like, how much time did you read the Bible versus how much time did you spend scrolling Facebook?
Right.
And it's not like if you spend more time scrolling Facebook one day than you
That's
reading
your
the
guy.
Bible, you're not a true Christian. It's not that, but it's just, it is calling into question what's shaping me, what's forming me,
Yeah.
you know? And
Well, and there's certainly something to be said too about, like, this might be a hard exercise, but look at your life, look at how you're spending your time, and at least let that inform how am I following Jesus? You know,
Yeah.
just very practically, very
Right.
tangibly.
Right. And it's not like you just have to have your nose in the Bible constantly, but it's also like thinking on these things, having conversations about Jesus. Even what I try to do even in my life is, if I'm paying attention to secular things, I think about them through the Christian lens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I try to, you know, every story, every movie has good and evil. It has light and dark. All these metaphors exist in pretty much every movie, every
Yeah.
TV show. So you can think theologically on these things and practice, like, having those conversations in your own head or with other people. Like, what were the metaphors there? What would Jesus say about these kinds of things? Like, that's a good way to build that practice. you
And
know?
if that sounds like very foreign or very, like, I don't know how I would do that, like, if you start to spend that time, and I mean, it could be 15 minutes. Like, we're not talking huge chunks of your life here, right?
Right.
Like, even just 15 minutes in the Word on a daily basis, like, it will start to give you this framework. I mean, it works its way into you, right? Like, God's Word is powerful and effective.
Just like anything, any voice you're listening to for,
It's shaping your framework.
yeah.
and,
I mean, if
like, you're
all,
being discipled.
yeah, I mean this in the nicest way, but if all you ever listen to is conservative talk radio, you're going to start thinking like a conservative, probably.
Yeah.
If all you listen to is progressive talk radio or progressive cable news, you'll probably start thinking progressively on issues. Like,
Right.
so if you're in God's word,
Yeah.
God's word will form
It
you.
will inform. Right. So like that whole like trying to think of things theologically or see them through the lens of Christ, like that will come as you will follow Christ. So like in a very practical way, just hear from him.
Right.
Listen to his word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Read it. All right. That's intellectual.
Yeah. So and then the financial piece, I mean, that was thinking about, like, in comparison with this rich young ruler who we talked about, who wasn't willing to give up anything to follow Jesus, in contrast to the disciples who they gave up everything. They gave up their livelihoods, their jobs, and they followed Jesus. They just did, right? And so the scriptures are very clear that God is the provider of all of our resources. We're called to be managers or stewards of the blessings that he's given to us, and then to use the blessings that God has given to us to be a blessing to others. And so if you don't see your financial treasures as a gift from God, I hope you do. I hope that you see that even though you worked hard and quote unquote earned that money, it still is a gift from God that you even had the capacity to go to your job in the first place to get those treasures. And so God gave you those treasures, yes, to sustain your own life and tend to your family, but to be a blessing that God's name would be made known in this world. So are you seizing control over those finances, those material resources, or are you generously giving them to causes that promote the spreading of Christ's name whether it be the church or other nonprofits or just being generous with your neighbors in need. Like that's, I mean, I think we've talked at some point, but like financial generosity is one of those things that's got to get in order for us. Like, I think to really start to follow Jesus, money can't be our Lord.
Right. I was just going to say, like, it's a good, not only a test, but then also a discipline for you as a Christian. Because we might not like to think that we are like that young rich ruler. We probably would think like, hey, I'm not rich like that guy was, you know? But the reality is we have a hard time looking at ourselves objectively, you know, about how much we actually do have, you know? Like, it's really hard to think about. You'll always feel like you don't have enough, right? It's very easy to have that kind of scarcity mindset, you might say. And so giving of your finances is not only kind of a sort of a test to be like, well, do I really, you know, am I trusting God? Am I looking to him as the giver of these gifts to me and therefore want to give back to him? Or do I kind of see it as just like, this is my world, God, you don't get to touch it. You don't get to have your hand in this piece, right? So it's a test in that way, but then it can become a discipline too, where as you actually give financially, because it's kind of a tender spot for us as humans, that becomes a place where you're opening yourself up to God actually having a very like tangible place in your life. You know what I mean? Like, you're giving him space to work, and you're saying, this isn't easy for me, God. You know, that's kind of the idea behind first fruits. Like, you're giving it ahead of time, like before you see how everything shakes out, you know? But I trust that you are my Father, that you are looking out for me, that I'm not dependent upon my bank account for my livelihood or for how things are going to go in my life, but I actually am dependent on you. And we're not trying to say here, like the call of the scriptures isn't go sell everything you have and give it to Saints Peter and Paul, and then go find a job or something. You know, good luck. You know, like no, that's not the point. But again, just take a look at, question one, am I giving any of my financial resources to the sake of the kingdom? Yeah. And if I'm not, well, I should think about that. And if I am, what percent does that look like? And just let that inform you. Okay, that's where I am. Like, this is how much I've been willing to give. And then ask yourself, could I give more? You know?
Is it sacrificial?
Right. Yeah. Like, is it we're not called to easy. When Jesus died on the cross, he didn't tithe his blood. You know, he didn't only give 10%. He gave 100%. Yeah. Now, again, we're not saying you have to give 100% of your money, but I think the tithe has kind of been the historical. I like it just because it's a figure. You know, it gives me something to strive to, and you can even strive beyond it. I know people who give above and beyond the tithe. For sure. And a tithe is just 10% of what you make is what that word means.
Before or after taxes?
That's another deep question.
All right, well, let's do the last on the like relational investment, and I see that as I'm all in following this thing. I'm intellectually invested. I'm financially invested. And boy, my life is good. My life's better.
Changed
because of this.
Yeah.
And I think you should be part of this too. Dude, your life would be better if you did Manflow yoga.
I've heard this many times. I'm still not a believer.
I know. All right. But so just think of the products that you like and how good of a salesperson you are on behalf of those companies that people you've convinced to buy something.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, just think about it. Like those, I don't know.
It happens all the time. I mean, people are very often recommending things like on Facebook or just
we're evangelists
socially.
For all kinds of stuff.
This isn't a video game, but there's a card game called Dominion. It's my favorite game.
I have talked about it.
I have evangelized. I've been a Dominion evangelist in my life, and I mean, I can think of specific people who now have the game because I talked it up so much.
I know. I wanted to play it with you, and then you just beat me up, and now I don't want to play it again.
Yeah, sorry about that, buddy. Don't play me unless you really have already played it a lot. But here's the thing, at least how I see it, is the relational piece of my faith, telling someone else about Jesus is probably not going to come unless I've kind of had those other investments.
I think so.
Like I need to learn about Jesus myself, and I need to see what it's like to follow him and see what sort of a change that makes in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I need to give God room in my life to challenge me. So I need to invest financially and see what happens when I take my grip off of my bank account and instead let him have a hold on that, and see what that does for me. And then what I am finding is, you realize, like, man, God, he means what he says, And I think it's worth noting, like, and maybe this is a little bit of a gospel piece for you, as you're listening, like a little respite or relief. If you're like, man, this sounding like a lot, guys. The disciples, they do immediately follow Jesus, but it's not like they immediately become the best disciples.
Oh, no.
Far from, right? They don't understand the kingdom. They are still putting other values above Jesus' values. They're arguing about who's the greatest.
Yeah.
They abandon Jesus at the time of his death. I mean, they misunderstand the heart of what Jesus has come to do in terms of overcoming hate by love, right? But Jesus doesn't abandon them, and that's the beauty of the gospel, is that, like, he restores them. And that's your relationship with him too. It's not as if you haven't done these things, like Jesus is there being like, I just cannot believe you.
It's as though God has grace for us.
Ooh, that reminds me of another upside down tenet of this kingdom.
No, but I'm serious, right? Like, every day is full of grace for you. Every day is a new day to follow him. Like, he's not going to hold your past failures against you. Mm-hmm. We harped on that last week, and that's where we started there, right? Because that's the thing, where it's like, you don't earn it, you don't deserve it, you're not defined by your failures. He just wants you to follow him. Mm-hmm. That's it, and it's good for you.
Yeah,
and then next week's full of grace as well, right? As we look at the cross and find strength in weakness,
right?
So this is all coupled in there. The opportunity to follow Jesus actually is it's his command, but he only commands us to do things that are good for us. Mm-hmm. So obedience to Jesus is actually good. It's not just like it's not because Jesus is mean. And he's like, you need to follow me.
Right.
It's just good.
And so, like, if you don't see the relational piece in your life, like if you don't see Jesus outflowing from you to other people in your life, that's worth, just like with the financial or the intellectual, tests, that's worth considering in your life. And what it likely means is you got to dive a little deeper on those first two, because as he starts to invade more of your life space, you won't, like, it'll come more naturally. Now you might still need some help. Like, you might still need some tips, or like, hey, I'm not used to doing that. Like, what does it look like? And we actually have opportunities for that here at this church. Yeah. So pay attention to the discipleship opportunities that Aaron has often mentioned and are kind of kickstarting again here. But yeah, like, let that be the thing that drives you back to Jesus. Relearn who he is, hear from him, and let him build his kingdom in you, and then you'll just be a walking. You'll start selling it, without, like, I don't know. It's not a work that we're doing to earn Jesus' love. You're starting from a position of, you have it. Yeah.
And then what you find in following Jesus is community of people who are doing the same thing. It's like, oh, you follow Jesus? Oh yeah, I follow Jesus. Cool.
Yeah.
Let's be united in Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's the unity is a result of our collective following of Jesus, and it's a good place to be. So, Kevin, let's wrap this one up here for today, and to our listeners, viewers. We didn't flip the camera this time, so we're upside down, but so are you, which means we're right side up.
Go hash some horses.
That's a good way to end. Bye.
See ya.